No, I mean, it's
It'll be 9
only
years.
because I had like 10 years of experience
Yeah.
with companies, and I had worked there before.
Hello, everybody.
All kind of times
Yeah.
so I'm enjoying it.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Careers in Tourism and Hospitality panel. My name is Tisa, and I will be your moderator for today's session. This afternoon, we have exceptional guests who are here to speak to you about the exciting industry that is tourism and hospitality. Before we get started, I just want to go over a few housekeeping rules with you. Just please turn off or mute your cell phone for the entirety of our session today, please. And we kindly ask that you remain seated throughout this panel. If you must exit, please do so at the exit where Candace is down below. There's no exits from the top, please. We do ask that you also postpone your questions to the end of the panel. There will be an opportunity then for you guys to ask some questions. And finally, many of you know this is a Learning Passport eligible event. So to keep things efficient, I just ask that you have your passport fully completed by the end of the session so that you can see Miriam or Candace or Paulette at the end to receive your Learning Passport stamp. That's great. Now we'll get started. So here with me today, I have Susan Downey Lim, Tour Director, Grape Escapes Nova Scotia Wine Tours and Taste of Halifax Food Tours. We also have next to her Melissa Carey, Manager of Cut Steakhouse. We have Stacey Harrison, Holiday Inn Hotel and Conference Center. We have Bria Amyot, Guest Services Supervisor from Delta Hotels and Resorts, and Adam Bauer, Owner and General Manager of Grand Banker Bar and Grill. Please help me welcome them to the stage. Our first question for the panel today. Susan, could you please briefly describe the organization you work for and your position?
Sure. So thanks for the introduction. My name is Susan Downey Lim, and I am the owner, operator, and tour director of Grape Escapes Nova Scotia Wine Tours and Taste Halifax Tours. So Grape Escapes, we do wine tours from Halifax to Nova Scotia wine country, usually the Annapolis Valley. Sometimes we go to the South Shore to see Adam, though. And then Taste Halifax tours, which are driving food and craft beer tours just around the city. So we go 7 days a week from May until October, and then we go on Saturdays and do special events, mainly in the wintertime. So my sort of day-to-day, I guess, in the tour season, which usually would consist of doing probably about a 6-hour tour, followed by probably about 3 to 4 hours of administration work, doing emails, phone calls, social media, that sort of thing. But that's not something that I would expect of a staff member. That's just sort of myself being the owner of the business.
Great, thank you. Melissa, can you tell us a little bit about your organization?
Can you hear me? I work for RCR Hospitality Group. We own several different restaurants, and I oversee 2 of them. I oversee Cut Steakhouse, and our new restaurant, it used to be the Urban Grill, but we're rebranding as Shuck Seafood and Raw Bar. So we're in the midst of renovations right now, and we'll be working towards opening that restaurant, which obviously is very interesting and brings along new challenges. At Cut, so we're open 7 days a week. We open for dinner only at 5:30, and we specialize in beef. So we have 4 different farms, different cuts of beef, very extensive wine list, high level of service, and we do a lot of cart service, which isn't something that you see elsewhere in the city. My day-to-day is lots of administration, of course, dealing with reservations, reports. I do social media as well for the restaurant. And then obviously updating menus, training staff, and just ensuring that everything is ready for guests to have an optimal experience with us.
Great, thank you. Stacey?
Hi, everybody. My name's Stacey Harrison, and I'm the sales manager at the Holiday Inn Hotel and Conference Center in Truro. The Holiday Inn is an IHG brand, but a privately owned property, and I always like to say in the heart of Atlantic Canada, which is great for corporate business, which is what I'm ultimately responsible for. I'm sales manager, but that would look after the budgeting, the social media, marketing, and putting heads in beds. So I work with a team of 2 others. We've got a sales coordinator and a catering manager, and they report to me. So as a team, we are doing our very, very best to bring as many corporate clients into the hotel and the area. So it definitely keeps us busy. It's a evolving market for sure. And just as downsizing takes place, lots of opportunity for, like I said, the Maritimes and Atlantic Canada.
Great, thank you. Bria, same question for you.
Yes. So hello, everyone. My name is Brie Amyot. I work at Delta Halifax. I'm a guest service supervisor, and I was actually just in your seats not too long ago. I only graduated from the Mount in November, so here I am. So my day-to-day is pretty standard. I work either a morning shift or an afternoon shift. With that, we always brief our team going onto the floor and make sure that they know of the events going on, people that are going to be in the hotel or around the hotel, and make sure that they have as much information as possible. So I oversee the front desk, switchboard, and our bellman to make sure that they have everything to wow our guests and ensure they have a welcome. And so then after that, my day-to-day is making sure that they have everything that they need to make sure that they're not stressed out or like they have enough staff on. I oversee comment cards, responding to guest issues, looking at lots of emails, all kinds of emails. And then after that, just if there's anything that needs to be followed up with, if things get escalated or anything like that, I'm going to be the responsible. And then also other departments will kind of come if they have any issues or they need some additional information. So just kind of making sure that everything's running smoothly on a day-to-day basis.
Great, thanks, Bria. And Adam.
Yeah, so my name is Adam Bauer, and I own the Grand Banker Bar and Grill and Brigantine Inn in Lunenburg, Nova Scotia, in my hometown. The Grand Banker is a 68-seat restaurant right on the waterfront there, right across from the museum and where the Blue Nose docks in Lunenburg. And upstairs we have the Brigantine Inn. We have 8 guest rooms, all different types. We have suites and waterfront views, and we accommodate guests. We're in a popular tourist destination, so we're a busy spot in the heart and center of Lunenburg. And in the winter, we're open year-round now as well too, so we get a lot of locals. So many places are seasonal down that way that we've been definitely a popular spot this time of year for locals in the town and surrounding areas. My day-to-day, the thing I like the most about this industry is, no 2 days are the same, but I try to divide my time up between getting office work done, managing the business, planning events, looking after, working with my accountant and planning for staffing and licenses and menu planning, and I really enjoy planning unique events that people traditionally don't get to experience down in Lunenburg, and working with as many local partners as I can to create unique experiences. And then I spend the rest of my day working in the restaurant on the floor. I'm a very hands-on owner. I manage on the floor in the restaurant as well, working with my team, helping out with the tables, speaking with the guests, kind of seeing directly how people are enjoying it and our opportunities and strengths, and really being that face of the business that's out there with my team and speaking with our clients.
Great, thanks, Adam. We're going to move on to question 2. Melissa, we'll start with you for this question. It's a 2-part question. Firstly, how has your career evolved, and are you doing what you had planned to do?
No. I went to Dal and I received a psychology degree and decided that I wanted to stay in Halifax. And so I started working for RCR as a server at Pier 22. And just grew with the company and fell in love with the industry. So I wouldn't say that it was planned at all, but I love my job. I love going to work, and I think that's really important. What was the first question, sorry?
How has your career evolved?
So I guess, I started as a server and just worked hard. If I could tell you guys anything, it's just to work really hard and be dedicated and be happy and fun to be around and driven, take on new challenges, and that's all I did really. I proved myself and worked through catering, started bartending at the Victory Arms Pub, and then we opened Onyx on Spring Garden Road. It was kind of our first high-end dining restaurant, and I had the opportunity to open that with them. So I learned so much there. We ended up being one of the top 10 new restaurants in Canada that year. We received 4 Diamond Awards through CAA every year, and so it was just working hard and being dedicated to to doing what's right for the company, and that always ends up being what's right for everybody involved, I think.
Excellent, thank you. And Stacey, same question for you.
That would be a no. I was very, very fortunate to be part of the tourism program. I graduated many moons ago. I won't say a date. And I had started, I majored in tourism development. And I was brought up, I guess, and my mindset was to take advantage of every opportunity that came my way. So when I did graduate, for a very short term, I worked with the province with their VICs programs. And since when funding at that point was being reduced, I actually was fortunate enough to work with Coca-Cola. So I had moved into that organization and went through sales. And I spent almost 9 years with Coca-Cola. From there, I moved into sales and operations with Xerox, based out of Burnside. And from there, I decided that I wanted to move home, which was just outside of Truro, and this opportunity came up. They had a difficult time finding a sales manager, so I went back into the industry, and as my father jokingly says, it's taken me 2 decades to get back where I should have been in the first place. So I've been with them for about 2.5 years. It's been a fantastic experience. The industry certainly gets in your blood, even in the very short time that I've been back in it. But one thing I would encourage is diversity. Especially if you wanted to get into hotels, the more experience you have, the more leverage you have to go that much quicker. So certainly take advantage of every opportunity, especially with the co-op program. I can't say enough fantastic things about that program. And I certainly think that all those things put together will certainly enhance your experiences.
Thanks, Stacey. And Bria, I know you're pretty early into your career, but same questions for you.
Great. Well, surprisingly enough, this isn't actually quite the direction that I want to be in, but I'm working towards that. So my career has evolved in the sense that I had started at the Delta in their kitchen, actually, and it was my first co-op, and I really liked the company, and so I said, round 2, let's go. So I went back and did the front office, and from there, they just kind of took me and they were like, there's this other position, it's got more responsibility, and next thing you know, I'm one of the front office supervisors. So I work there full time now. Right out of school, I kind of worked after my co-op was technically done, and they decided they wanted to keep me, so I said okay. But coming in September, I'm actually going to be attending Holland College and doing their pastry arts program, which is something that I really actually came here to eventually do. So in the time being, it's really great, and I'm learning a lot. And if I'm lucky, maybe someday I'll actually be able to go back to hotels and work in pastry. So we'll see how it goes, but I'm getting there.
Excellent. And Adam, same question.
I actually couldn't be doing more exactly what I plan on doing than I am. My first job in the industry was bussing tables and serving at the Grand Banker, and it was in high school then, and that got me interested in tourism hospitality management, and then I discovered the program at the Mount, and I went to school here, and while I was in school here, I did my work terms there. I did my co-ops serving for 1 year there, and then I was assistant manager there 1 year as well. And the whole reason I got in the industry is because I worked at the Grand Banker, and I saw what Alan, the gentleman who owned it before me, had there in Lunenburg. I was really proud of my hometown, and I saw what he had there, and I wanted to have something like that for myself someday. Never thought I'd actually own that exact business. It kind of all just worked out that way. But I worked for after university. I worked for Fairmont Hotels in Jasper for close to 5 years, and then I spent another 5 years working for Delta Hotels in Halifax. I worked for the Delta Halifax, Delta Barrington, and I worked in different food and beverage positions within the company over a 10-year span. Everything from managing pubs to five-diamond high-end fine dining restaurants to banquets, and we did a lot of outside catering. We did concerts. We served the Queen. I got to open a brand new restaurant. So the amount of experience I had working for a big company that really taught me how to do things right and standards to follow through on for great guest service. That all kind of built me up and got me ready to own my own business. I can't imagine doing this without that experience. So it's really set me up for success, and I kind of get to live my dream in having a business in my hometown in Lunenburg, right on the waterfront there. So it seemed impossible at the time when the gentleman Alan who owned the business before me had 2 kids. I just figured one of them would end up with the business someday. So 2.5 years ago when I got that call saying the business was for sale and he was going to give me first shot at buying it, I followed the path of trying to purchase a business for 6 months, and it just all worked out. So.
Excellent. So we'll finish that question off with you, Susan.
Yeah, so I would say that no, operating a wine tourism business was sort of not always what I thought, but it definitely was kind of a natural progression for me. So by trade, I'm a teacher by trade, and I did my teaching degree in Australia. I had the opportunity to go there, and while I was there, I also learned a lot about the wine industry and the wine tourism industry that was happening in southern Australia at the time and still is. So coming back to Nova Scotia, I started substitute teaching here in Halifax and also worked part-time at wine store Premier Wine and Spirits, where I kind of further got an education about wine, would lead in-store tastings, and definitely really developed a passion for it. So this was sort of during the time, early days of Nova Scotia wine. There wasn't a whole lot of tourism involved in the wine industry, and I guess I sort of seen a need for that type of a service. So I sort of started the business, I guess, as a summertime job. It would sort of supplement my income in between teaching, and it just kind of became more from that. So I still do teach a little bit as well, but I would say that no, definitely wasn't what I envisioned, but it has been an amazing journey for sure, and never look back. And then as well, just with the business evolving, when we opened it, it was going to be, I guess, strictly a wine tourism business. That was what we planned. We didn't want to do tours to Peggy's Cove, Cape Breton, that sort of thing, because that's done by a lot of other operators. And it's just sort of evolved now, I guess, in the last couple years, doing a lot more food tours, a lot more craft beer tours, and that has been a result of listening to our clients and our guests and what they want, and also what's kind of trendy and new developments in the sort of the culinary industries. Yeah.
Great, thanks so much. For question 3, Stacey, we'll start with you for this one. This one's a 3-part question. So, what do you like about your work, and what do you dislike about it, and what do you find the most challenging?
I think one of the things I enjoy the most is the customer service piece. I did my final work term at Disney, and I jokingly sometimes tell my boss that it ruined me because my expectations went that much higher. So in this industry, in sales, and being responsible for the corporate client, that's one of the differentiators that I feel that our property brings, and that's that little bit of extra touch and the foresight to come up with the small things that it's a competitive market. So I think that's one of the things that I enjoy most is kind of pampering that corporate client when they come to the hotel. Some of the things I find challenging, I'm a very structured personality. So this industry, and when you're goal-oriented and you had your plan for the day, it's quite common to have none of those things done on your day because it's very, depending on who's in-house, it can change on a dime, and you really have to be prepared for that. Not that it's a bad thing, but it certainly, it takes some getting used to for sure. Part 3 is, in this industry, I think one of the challenging things is, I've been fortunate enough to spend some time in Halifax attending events. And I think one of the challenges, you don't realize when you do have a good product and you are able to experience other products. And in this case, I'll just speak exclusively to the catering piece. In Truro, small market, fantastic product. When you move to Halifax or Moncton even, you can get double the price for sometimes, in some cases, lesser quality. So I think that's one thing I always struggle with is when you know your product's good and aren't able to maximize that revenue piece. I always find that challenging. So something to work on.
Great. Thanks, Stacey. And Bria?
It's a 3-part question. It's tricky, so bear with me. Obviously, what I like about my job is the people that I work with, and the people that are coming and staying with us. So at Delta, we are very close-knit. All the departments work very closely together, and it's really great. You get to know all kinds of people, and you can kind of just like poke and pray and just be like, I really need your help with this, or whatever it is. So it's a very good support team. And then the guests obviously can be so wonderful. You get to meet all kinds of different people from all around the world, and we have some great conference areas too, so it's not necessarily people that are coming from far and wide, but some people that are just kind of within the area, and you get to come and meet them, and they can tell you quite a funny story themselves. And then what I dislike about the position, It's kind of a hard thing to say. I mean, I deal with a lot of guest complaints, which is not something I necessarily dislike. I just wish that there was other ways that something could have happened and it could have been prevented. So it's kind of just anticipating that an accident could happen or an error could happen, and just how we can resolve it before the guest gets upset or worse. So that's definitely something that's I dislike and is a challenge, both of them. And then what I find most challenging with my position in particular, I find it a little bit difficult managing people that are much older than me, that have been within the company longer than me. So I just kind of try and take it as a grain of salt. You know, I still have to do my job and make sure that everyone knows what they're doing and they're doing their processes properly. So just kind of learning how to work with people that have been there, that kind of feel like they know everything, is a little bit challenging. And as well, since Delta has just been recently bought by Marriott, we now have a more difficult area as far as setting ourselves apart from the other brands. So pretty near all the hotels downtown are going to be almost under the same rewards program. So as far as some of our elite members, some of our most strong and true members, we're going to be fighting very hard for their business. So as a big picture, that's going to be a challenge for the hotel for sure.
Thanks, Bria. And Adam.
The thing I like the most about my job is working with people. I mean, that's the whole reason I got involved in this industry. I started serving in a restaurant, and I started talking to people about why they came to visit Lunenburg, and kind of developed that hometown pride. And I enjoy talking with people, whether it's regulars that we have in there that are in every day, or people from away, hearing what they came to see or hearing about where they're from. And our team, I mean, I'm very fortunate. I have a great team there. They're all very excited and bought into everything we're doing, which is great as a business owner. You know, if we have a new craft beer coming on tap, or we have, you know, an event coming up or a new dish coming, they're as passionate about it, honestly, as I am. I hear them speaking to the customers about it just like I would, which is, you know, kind of what you want in everyone there, but it's always hard to achieve. So, I mean, working with people and just us all getting excited about what we're doing and taking pride in what we're doing. And one thing I really enjoy about being in Nova Scotia, I worked in Alberta for 5 years, and I was in Jasper, which is in the middle of the Rockies. You're kind of far removed from a lot of the products you're serving for the most part. In Nova Scotia, we're a very tight industry. You know the other restaurant owners, you know the winemakers and the brewmasters, and you know the different farms and you know seafood fleets that you're buying your products from. There's personal relationships there with pretty much everything you're doing and serving, and I really enjoy that about here. I mean, when you have a story to tell about your product and you actually know the people who produce it, and you know that really gets you more excited about things, and you feel more involved in the whole movement here. So that's what I enjoy most about the job. You know, there's nothing I really dislike more so than challenges. You know, in the last 2 years, I've really learned the challenges of owning a small business. You know, before I worked for a big company, and the things that happen behind the scenes that I didn't know about, you know, with a big corporation, you know, I look after firsthand now. So, you know, that's been a learning curve for me, but I'm very fortunate that I had the person I bought the business from is still a mentor to me. So, you know, only a phone call away with a question instead of trying to learn the hard way. And the other thing is, this industry does require a lot of hours. It's not a 9 to 5. So, you know, I've been doing it for a long time. I'm used to the hours, but with the way technology is going, you know, sometimes you just got to push yourself to shut it off, because people can get a hold of you, you know, any time of day, any way, shape, or form. They don't know if you're working or not. So you got to find a way to have your time for yourself too. My wife and I had our first baby girl 2 weeks after we opened the restaurant 2 years ago. So, you know, within 3 weeks, we had a baby, opened a restaurant, and sold our house. So time management is something that's very important, and I got thrown right into it. So it's very important that you look after yourself too, and find that balance.
Great. You sound busy. Susan, we'll go back to you for that question.
Yeah, so things that I like about operating a tour business. I got to say, well, I guess all of us have that in common. If we're in the tourism hospitality industry, we like dealing with people. Yeah, you have to do that. So, but I would say that's what I like the most about operating a business, is actually doing the tour guiding. So talking to people, entertaining them, you have them for a full day with you, and you really get to know a little bit more about them, where they're coming from, their kind of story, what brought them to Nova Scotia. as well as really just showcasing what our province has and watching a lot of tourists walk away being really pleasantly surprised at what we have, especially in terms of wine and food as well, for sure. So that's what I would say I would like the best about it. Dislikes, I would say that I don't have a ton of dislikes in the tour guiding side of it, but I really, really dislike when the buses break down. That's like the worst. So actually that whole side of it being like a transportation company and owning vehicles, buses and vans, it's, yes, very challenging, and I get very frustrated. So I could say I strongly dislike that. And then challenges. So being a business owner, I would say I definitely have the same challenges that Adam would say, and that's the time management. So there's no such thing as a 40-hour-a-week job. It's a lot more than that. It doesn't always feel like work because it's something that you're usually pretty passionate about, but it is very challenging to balance the rest of your life, so especially having family and whatnot. So that can be very challenging. As well as sort of the tour guide end, the timing is always a challenge, and keeping the tour time on schedule. You're always running into things that you can't control. People who may have mobility issues, people who want to stop and chat with everybody that they see along the way, which is great, and also things with traffic and whatnot. So the timing is always kind of a challenge for us. We want to keep the timing as close to it as possible because that's how the experience is going to go best for the guest, as well as the partners that we deal with, like the wineries, the restaurants, the breweries, that sort of thing. So timing is a challenge, and then also, of course, which is kind of specific to us, is that we have tours that offer tasting alcohol. So as you can imagine, that can sometimes be a little bit challenging, where you want people to have fun, but not too much fun, sort of thing. So, yeah.
Great. And Melissa, we'll finish that question off with you.
I love being on the floor. I love being with our guests and providing an experience that perhaps they've never had before, selling a different bottle of wine from a country that, they've never gotten to experience before. And I really love training the staff. I love watching them grow and coming into their own. A lot of the times when we get servers, they are younger, and we can kind of mold them and shape them. And I've had quite a few people who've worked for me who've gone on to open other restaurants and run their own restaurants, and there's something really satisfying about that. And I think that's what kind of keeps you going and keeps you working those long hours, and like we all do. If you're not willing to work hard, go now. Challenges, I would say, is just not becoming complacent. They always say the death of a restaurant is complacency. So just trying to be on the cusp of new trends, trying to find new ways to provide different services and different experiences for people. It's a pretty challenging position to be in. Margins are tight, and being able to have people come to your restaurant instead of somewhere else is always a challenge, because there's many, many good ones in Halifax right now.
Great. Bria, we'll start question 4 with you. Can you tell us about the type of jobs that might be available for students considering a career in your company?
Yes, it's very easy. As I'm sure many of you know, we have opportunities in the front office working as our guest service agents, in housekeeping as a house person, or multiple of those. I don't actually know the titles very well. Shh, Daniel, don't tell anyone. Daniel, in the crowd here, actually works at the hotel with me, so it's fun. But housekeeping has lots of opportunities. It's hard work, but it is really good there. Everyone is very well-spirited. And then as well in our restaurant, in-room dining or serving on the floor. So those are kind of like our entry-level positions. But for me, especially, like, it moved pretty quickly. So if you kind of show your dedication and show your passion and your pride, it won't take long to be able to move up the ranks.
Great. And Adam, in your company?
Yeah, so I had my first work term at the restaurant that I have now, the Grand Banker. So I started out there serving. There's definitely serving positions available. There's room attendant for cleaning our rooms. There's bartending, and there is also, I'm definitely looking for, ideally for me, to have someone who wants to get into, any of you taking this degree want to get managerial experience, and I'm looking to have that but for someone to do a relief supervising role is kind of the entry-level step. Then you're involved, with our supervisory team, and there's a lot of special projects and things that you can take on to grow within my business. And also, you hit a certain point. I'm a smaller business. We have about 35 employees, but when you're at that point where you're ready for the next step, kind of like I was when I was there, I left and went on, and it's good to get some experience with some of the bigger companies as well too. And I do development plans with anyone who's working for me and wants to grow, and can help you find that next step, whether it's with me or someone else. So.
Great. Susan, we'll wrap around back to you.
Yeah, so basically we're looking for someone to fill tour guiding positions with probably a bit of administration responsibilities as well, social media, emails, phone calls, that sort of thing. And so really we're just kind of a seasonal business, so we're looking for people to do that between like May and October.
Great. Melissa?
Well, we're kind of a larger hospitality industry, which is somewhat rare, I guess, in the city. So we do have 5 different restaurants. There's a lot of growth from inside, and so we're always looking for bartenders, servers, cooks, obviously, pastry chefs, managers, supervisors, and then on the flip side as well, we have a head office. So we do a lot with social media, sales, marketing. So there's kind of a wide range of positions with our company. But once you kind of get in and, if you work hard and you do a good job, there's always room for growth, which is really nice. And one of the reasons why I've stayed with the same company for so long is that they recognize hard work, and they will bring you along to do different things and other things that maybe suit your personality better.
Great. And Stacey?
At the hotel, there's the typical, like many have spoke about, like servers, the housekeeping team. I am a firm believer in the more revenue, the more opportunity you have in sales. So we've actually tried very, very hard to look at those on staff internally to move into the sales department as an administrative role, lead generation and that type of thing. So we have usually that particular position is meant for students or those on staff that are either going back to school or moving on to different areas even in the country. So for us, there's kind of those 3 buckets. We are privately owned, but if you do work for any of the IHG brand and you are looking to move on, there is all kinds of opportunity. New properties are being built and acquired all the time. So that certainly is great to have on a resume. So even if it is an entry-level position, if you want to stay in the industry, specifically relocate as well, there is really wherever you'd like to go and whatever you'd like to do, the opportunities there for sure.
Great, thank you. Adam, we'll start the next question with you. This is another one of your favorites, 2-part questions. So can you describe the changes in the industry that you have seen in the last 5 years, and what changes and trends do you see going forward?
Definitely. Well, I mean, one big change in our industry has been the local movement, which is great. We have so many great producers and suppliers in Nova Scotia, and it's only continuing to grow. And it's become a thing of, before there were certain restaurants and that was kind of their signature thing if they focused on local. Now it's becoming the norm, where you need to, or you're going to be on the out. Whether it's having local craft beer on tap instead of different mainstream brands that come from the States or another part of the country. People want to taste, drink, and eat local, and hear the story behind a product, and that has really changed and it continues to grow, and I don't see that stopping at all. It's great for tourism because tourists come here to experience Nova Scotia, but also the flavors of Nova Scotia. But also our locals. I mean, locals are buying local craft beer and local wine and local food, and that's why markets all over the province are really popular and taking off. So I don't see that stopping, and it's a great thing for all of us. The other thing I would say is with social media and online reviews, whether it be TripAdvisor or different other forms, tourists when they come here, and locals, when you're going to eat in a restaurant, chances are you're looking online to see what other people are saying about it. And as a business owner, you really have to be able to manage your reputation and stay in front of it. And if there's an issue, you need to address it right away. and make sure you're keeping a good presence online. People aren't just going to a place based on location anymore. You could have a great location, but I know tourists, when they come to Lunenburg now, you'll hear them, they'll ask locals, or they'll look online and find out where locals are eating as well, because they know that must be a good spot. They don't want to end up in a so-called tourist trap that's just based on location. So it's very important to stay on top of your reputation and the local trends.
Great. And Susan, what would you say?
Yeah, well, I would agree with Adam's point about just sort of the increase in online, and I think that can be said with a lot of different industries for sure. But what we noticed just in terms of travelers coming to Nova Scotia, they are booking and planning everything that they do online. They are reserving our tours online. They're using the user review sites. And the way that I see that kind of increasing is that not only is everything going to remain online, but it's even more so it needs to be sort of mobile specific. And I think that basically everybody will start planning their trips and during their trip all by their mobile devices. So that's sort of what we've seen has increased just in kind of traveler habits. As well, we've seen sort of an increase in the amount of Americans coming the last few years, the amount of ship traffic, the amount of young couples that are traveling without children with disposable income. And also we've seen a real increase in the type of experience that people are looking for. So not only do people want something that they're getting away from, I guess, the typical sightseeing tour, but they want something that's hands-on, that's very specific to the area that they're traveling. So very ties in very much with sort of the local movement. And they want something that is a very authentic experience to where they're going, and sort of almost like an exclusive experience. And it seems to be that a lot more people have the money to pay for kind of an elevated experience that way. And the second part was?
What changes and trends do you see going
yes.
forward?
So I would say it would be continually that is going to stay, if not increase more. Like people want them more local, and an increase in mobile for sure.
Great. And Melissa, what would you say?
As far as restaurants go, 5 years ago, I think everyone kind of saw an increase in very casual dining. Burgers, bistros, white tablecloth was gone for a little while. How I see that changing, again, obviously the local, but fresh and honest product and service, I think. People are much more educated in food and beverage and all these cooking shows, and I think that now the trend is kind of moving towards just having a fresh, honest experience. I think people are willing to pay for different experiences depending on whether they see the value. So if they see good value in a $30 meal, or if they see good value in a $200 meal, I think that they're still going to be happy. And that we are getting back maybe into a little bit more detailed dining, which obviously I'm happy about. But people get it. There's no more smoke and mirrors. I think for a long time, restaurants were able to kind of, maybe do things to make people think that they're getting something that they're not. That really can't happen anymore. There's a real sincerity, I think, that's come back into restaurants, into dining, into service. And into how all of that is kind of relayed to the guests. And I think that they appreciate that and they see that.
Great. Stacey, same question for you.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head for that one. I think everyone wants that localized experience. Support local is huge. I think all of our organizations are probably really trying to leverage those networks. And cross-promote and make sure that we're all successful. I think one of the things I say, and my colleagues, I had a great breakfast with a local sales manager here, and we're all saying the same thing. It's not so electronic anymore. From a booking perspective, it is, but when it comes to sales and having the client really trust who it is they're buying from people, and I find it going back to not so email oriented, but it's very much face to face. They want to know who they're buying from, who they can contact if something doesn't go as expected. And I think if you understand that and kind of take a step back and really appreciate, what, people are on budgets. They really do want to have their money go where it needs to, whether it's, just one guest room for their family, or whether it's, purchasing for an organization or an association. They're very price sensitive, and I think you need to appreciate that and kind of respect where they're coming from. And like I say, just kind of go back to the old-fashioned face-to-face sales, I think is going to go a long way moving forward. And I think it's probably going to continue that direction as the local movement, like the others have said, that face-to-face, customized, very personalized approach. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And Bria, we know you're fresh into the starting of your career, but I'm sure you have some insight in what's changed in the last 5 years.
Yeah, I'll try. So obviously I can't speak for the past 5 years, but just some things that I notice, I guess on my day-to-days. Our property in particular does need a bit of a facelift, and so our guest rooms have been waiting for renovations for quite some time. And each year this is kind of becoming more and more apparent from our guest feedback. So they're really looking for rooms that are mode, that are chic, that have all kinds of outlets and plugs so everyone can plug in all their electronics, hookups for Netflix and things like that. So they really want kind of like the ease and access that they would have at home but on the road. As far as business travelers, they're kind of evolving a little bit themselves. I actually saw an article once where Marriott considered removing the desks from the rooms, and I literally went crazy. I was like, are you kidding? Anyway, but so we're seeing a bit more influx of non-business travelers, so people that are coming on leisure. These are more difficult because they are paying out of their own pocket, so they're looking for a lot more from our service side. So we do get a lot of feedback, positive feedback on our service and how it is very personalized and how we're willing to go out of our way to make sure that someone has a satisfactory stay. And so that's kind of, again, like something that's not dying out. Like, service is strong, and if you provide people with authentic, genuine experiences, they're going to remember that rather than the product that they're staying in. So just making those connections, and then the ease of kind of making the reservations and making the bookings, like anything to make things go smoothly, people are very happy with. So
That's great, thank you. We'll move on to question 6 now. I know we kind of touched on this briefly, but dealing specifically with your company, can you describe the hiring process for new university graduates, and what does your company look for in new hires? Susan, we can start with you.
Yep. So we would do an interview, and the second step would be coming along on a couple tours with us just to make sure you're a good fit. What we're looking for is someone who is obviously outgoing, likes people, is okay entertaining a group, is good with public speaking. Also someone who is mature, I guess, because a lot of the work is done by your own without supervision. So we need someone who can handle that. And then just basically being organized, being punctual is very important. But the biggest thing is being outgoing, and you're okay sort of entertaining a group. And hopefully you're a good driver too. That works. But we will always help you get your license sort of thing to drive our vehicles. Yep.
Great. And Melissa?
I think for us, it's a lot of personality. And so in our industry especially, we can teach you, we can bring you along, but you need to bring yourself to the table. So I always like it when someone can make me smile during an interview, because I want you to make our guests smile every day. And just being sincere, hardworking, someone who is well-spoken, who can carry on an intelligent conversation with the guests. And I personally really love going to work, and so I really want to be at work with other people who are happy to be there. And so that's really what's most important for us, just your personality and bringing that through, and then willing to work hard and do what's best for the company.
Okay, great. Stacey?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Personality is huge no matter what level, because you're always going to interact with a guest on some level. I think one of the things that our past few positions that we've hired for, and it's been not just entry level, but it's right up to an executive chef role, is fit with the team. I think you need to really understand the personalities and synergy, because it is very, very competitive, and one person in that mix makes such a huge difference to the rest of the dynamic, that's really important. So we've actually, obviously there's a hiring process that is, with the HR manager and the typical interview questions, but we go one step further. We actually have peer interviews. So that kind of adds a different perspective. We find that the interviewee is a little bit more honest, I guess, and just a different perspective, and that's really worked for us for the past couple, because it just makes everyone feel comfortable with that chosen candidate. So I think personality and fit is huge.
Great. And Bria, can you tell us a little bit about the process in your company?
Yeah, so it's pretty straightforward. Having a university degree, especially in tourism and hospitality, is certainly beneficial. It's not something they just kind of turn a blind eye to. They really do take it seriously because they realize that you have done the work and you are here, so you have some level of passion for the industry. And so that also, for me especially, worked moving up within the company. So it's potentially because of that other candidates weren't considered as highly because they didn't have the same kind of background. So again, we kind of start our interview process by sending out a survey that just asks a couple questions about your personality, making sure you don't like to steal things and stuff like that. Just preliminary things that any business would want to try and avoid. And then we work on to either a phone interview or an in-person interview, and depending on the position, it will go to a third tier of interview with our director of operations or our rooms management or anything, depending on the position that you're applying for. But then after that, you just they really do promote internal hirings for positions. So with us especially, we're fortunate to have 2 Delta properties, both downtown locations. So it's not necessarily that once you're in and you're in the food and beverage side that you're going to be staying there forever. So you could start as a server and then work to a relief supervisor in housekeeping, or you could go into the front office as a supervisor, or go across the street, or go across Canada, or anything like that. So kind of once you get in, you have a lot of opportunities to move once you're in the company.
That's great. And Adam, same question.
Yes, so yeah, you'd be interviewed, and the biggest thing I'm looking for in the interview is to make sure that you're personable. Positivity is a huge thing. When someone comes to work and they bring negativity to workplace, it spreads. All it takes is one person in the team to be having a bad day and let it spread through the rest of the team, and it kind of, it spreads from the front of house to the back of house to the customer. So, maintaining a positive attitude, having a passion for what you do. We're looking for an indication in the interview that you're passionate about this industry and that you're goal-oriented. You're driven. You have things that you want to achieve that we can help you with. And the other thing is that you're open-minded. You definitely can't be resistant to change in this industry. It evolves every day. We're always trying to grow and look for new opportunities. And if you're someone who can become stuck in their ways, and this is the way we did it at the last place, and you don't think it's right here, that sort of attitude won't work, because you always got to, be open-minded. And the other thing is that you're good at communicating. From to the customer to your team members, you have to be a good communicator. We won't be able to get the job done if you can't communicate well with your team. I do personal development plans with my employees and help them achieve their goals. And I want to know I want you to share what you want to learn, what you want to get out of the position. And in interviews, we definitely talk about every aspect of the job, all the responsibilities that you'll have. And we want to make sure that it's a good fit, that you'll be happy doing this, and you won't get into the job and realize that it was something that wasn't for you. Neither of us win if we get you into a job you're not going to be happy with. The skills, all the technical skills, they can be taught. The biggest thing is if you have the right attitude, the right drive, the positivity, then we'll be able to work with you, and it will be a good fit for both of us.
Great. Thank you, Adam. For the interest of time, I might just skip over the next question and move on to question 8, and then we'll open the floor up to any students who want to ask you some questions. So Melissa, I'll start with you. We have a lot of people in the room who would at some point in time like to be senior managers in their field. So how can they accomplish this goal?
Be happy at work. Come to work with a smile on your face, get along with others, be the type of person who other people want to work with. Keep learning, be driven. And especially in our industry, food and beverage, there's always more you can learn about. With wine, I have my sommelier, but I still take extra courses because it's never ending. the learning never ends. So realize that now and always kind of drive and grasp for more things. Also, when you're working, always do its best, even when you don't think anyone's watching, because they are, always. And it doesn't go unnoticed. So just always doing what's best for the company, what's best for our guests. That just kind of shows your dedication and your passion to what, you know, we're trying to do as an industry. So I guess those are the types of things that I would suggest. Just work hard, be happy, and be driven to do more.
That's great. And Stacey, what would you say?
I think in the hotel business, I think the hands-on, don't be afraid of jumping in and helping. I think you gain a lot of respect from your peers if you're willing to kind of pull up your shirt sleeves and jump in and help bus tables when the restaurant slammed, or, you know what, strip rooms when you just had a sold-out night and you need to have all those rooms ready for 3 o'clock. I think the more touch points you have, that you have even a little bit of experience, I think speaks volumes when you're looking to take that next step up. And I've never run into one instance that hasn't been totally respected. And certainly, like you said, you think it might not go, you think it's going unnoticed, but it never does. And I think people appreciate the help. They respect it, and I think it gives you a little bit of an edge if you're competing with others for one of those positions, whatever direction you'd like to go in. So,
Great. And Bria, what would your advice be for students to accomplish that goal?
I would say it would probably be flexibility, motivation, and positive attitude, as everyone's kind of said. So essentially, if you're able to move within the company and move within different positions, different properties, you're gaining lots of experience. You're dealing with multiple scenarios because obviously when you start a position, you're not going to be prepared for what's going to get thrown at you. For me especially, like every day, anything could happen. The fire alarm could go off, someone could hurt themselves on the property, and they're going to have to come, and I'm going to have to make sure that they're okay and they're not going to hurt our reputation and our brand. But I know our general manager, he started as a bellman, not necessarily with Delta, but he did kind of start at the front line. It wasn't what he was anticipating on doing. But now he is the general manager of our properties on the East Coast. So it's kind of nice to see that he's kind of worked himself from the bottom and worked his way up. Lots of people that are in the company that are in our sales department or reservations department, they had started in the front office, or they kind of started somewhere else within the company. Our HR, Patricia Oliver, many of you may have known her name from interviews and stuff like that. She actually had started in housekeeping way back in the day, so now she's kind of in that position. So it's really just taking any opportunity, learning lots of experience, and being flexible and showing your creative ideas with anticipation to different events coming up or any potential negative scenarios. So.
Okay. And Adam, any advice?
Yeah, one of my biggest pieces of advice would be to stay focused on your long-term goals. When you get out of school and some of those first jobs you have, I know when I left Mount St. Vincent and I worked for Fairmont and Jasper, you know, the salaries when you first get out there, you know, your servers may be making more than you with the tips. I mean, especially if you worked in food and beverage, you know, when I've seen people make that jump from server to supervisor or manager, and they miss all those tips and they get discouraged because they're not making as much money. You need to pay your dues, so to speak, and stay focused on your long-term goals. And you know, it will come. You know, once you make those next steps down the road, it will come, and you'll get those positions and those salaries that you're looking for. But don't get discouraged initially. You know, you do need to pay your dues and stay focused on your long-term goals, and just make sure you're gaining experience and you're getting yourself there, and you're not losing sight of what the end result is you want for yourself. And you know, for your employer, show initiative. Be reliable, be that person they go to when they need help with something. Be the one who stays late to help out when there's a sick call, or fills in a day when you're short, or takes on special projects. And go to whoever you're reporting to, go to them with ideas and thoughts and suggestions, and you know, don't just identify problems, be a part of the solution. Show yourself in that leadership role, even if you may not have the position at the time. That will help get you there. And the other thing is find a good mentor. I haven't had a position in my career so far that wasn't led to from the mentor I had. And you know, actually the business I own now started from my very first mentor. It went full circle 12 years later. So you never know when it's going to come back. Don't burn any bridges. Keep those relationships, and find a good mentor to lean on it for advice in every aspect of your career.
Great. Susan, we'll give you the last word for this question before we open up the floor to students.
Sure, yep. So senior management with us, I got to say, I don't really know what that would look like at this point. We're only been in business not even 5 years. We're still considered a startup, and we're a seasonal business, so we do have a small staff, so I would say that probably I'm the only senior manager that we have right now. But I can say that we have had significant growth in the years that we have been operating, and our growth largely depends on the growth of the tourism industry as well as the wine and craft beer industries. So one thing I could say about if that position came within our business, I think it would be something that a staff would move quickly into, rather than being more of a lengthy process that could be with larger organizations.
Okay, great. So we're going to open up the floor to students. For anyone who has a question, Candace has a wireless mic, so if you'd like, you can just raise your hand, speak into the mic, and we'll have the panelists answer the questions for you. Everybody is shy.
I have a question. Is this working?
Go ahead, Candace.
You mentioned, we work in a very fast-moving industry, and whether it's the hotel or the food and beverage side. I was just wondering specifically, what are some of the things that you do to stay on top of the changes and the trends that you have to do? Do you read local magazines? Do you attend meetings? Do you check websites? What is it that you actually do to stay on top of the changes?
Does anyone want to take that first?
I think networks are huge, especially if you're not in city limits. You can be on your own, and I think leveraging those networks, whether it's through LinkedIn, if you today totally take advantage of times that you are able to reach out, fellow owners, guest services managers, whatever that niche market is, certainly leverage that, because you may have common concerns, challenges, different workarounds to specific problems. You're never going to know all the answers, but there's a wealth of knowledge out there with people that you can connect with in the industry that I think you need to take advantage of and not be too proud to ask, because at one point everybody has gone through similar situations that you need to leverage that expertise. So I think that's a huge one for me anyway.
I can, for myself, it's definitely being involved in different networks, and yeah, you see stuff on TV and magazines, but it's getting yourself out there too and experiencing for yourself, and that's one of the perks of the industry. It's important to go out there and try the restaurants and see what other people are doing, whether it be around here or when you're traveling away. It is very important. It's an enjoyable part of the job, but it's good to see what others are doing and kind of see what would apply and work in your specific area. And going, like, we're going to be at Savor Food and Wine here on Thursday. We were at the local craft beer and food event at the Marriott there not too long ago. It's being involved in those trade shows and having those industry memberships, whether it be with Tasting Nova Scotia or tie-ins, and you kind of get information fed to you that way and what's up and coming and what's the latest and greatest.
Yeah, from a tour operator perspective, I would say that for us, it's about listening to what people want. So what our guests want. We get suggestions. We get tours. People want everything, like tours going to Vegas and stuff like that. Like, we're not going that far, but listening to what people want and then kind of adapting to that, and not being afraid to do something that might not do so well. So we've done all kinds of different tours for the last 5 years here. Some of them have not been hits, and some of them have been excellent. So it's not being afraid of sort of the failure that some of them might not do so well, about taking the chance. And also we try to do a fair amount of research in other parts of North America, cities or I guess places that are similar to us in the New England states, as well as in Ontario and a little bit in Western Canada, and noticing what's going on there and what's trendy there in terms of culinary tourism, because probably most likely that's eventually going to get to Nova Scotia.
I think it's important too that it's not always the big things. It's not always this great big idea. Sometimes it's just like the small little things that you can introduce in your business or restaurant or hotel that make a difference. So if you could go somewheres and see something, you know, really small, and then you introduce it in your market, and that's how things continue to move ahead and progress.
For me, I like to make sure that I'm on top of the events going on within the city. So I actually kind of rely on the coast a lot. It's a really good resource. It's really informative. It's telling you what locals are saying. It's telling you about events coming up, things as far as cultural to entertainment. And then, of course, looking at other brands. What are they doing? How can we do that? I kind of like to snoop around to the other hotels. Yeah, exactly. I'm kind of like the worst nightmare. I come to check in. I ask like a million questions. So like, how do you do this? And like, what would you do if this happened? And just kind of like test them a little bit, like secret shopper. But other than that, yeah, just if we have returning conferences that come in, just kind of what happened last time and what could we do to kind of exceed their expectations this time. So just things like that, you know, poking around.
Excellent. Does anyone from the audience feel brave enough to ask a question now? Candace broke the ice. Go ahead. Candace will bring you the mic.
Hi, everyone. My question would be, how do you make yourself a person of interest in a situation when you're making an unsolicited request for a job position? Because I think for a lot of us right now, going into the co-op or practicum for the summer, a couple of us have already gotten positions, but I think a lot of us are still kind of in that phase of looking for it. And even though there's tons of places that are looking for seasonal, I think sometimes some people want to look for something that's a little bit more towards where they really want to be. And I think, honestly, most of us think that we're going to be an excellent candidate for that position, but making that known to the employer, because I'm sure that they get tons of people coming to them on a daily basis thinking that they're going to be great for the position, and I think it's just making that kind of connection and getting yourself to that point of actually being interviewed is kind of tricky. So what would you say would be something that you could really set yourself apart? Like, how would you like to see an unsolicited request for a position?
I would encourage, if you know a specific role that you're interested in or an organization, I have done it and it's never failed me yet, is reach out on LinkedIn. You know what, I'm interested in this particular position, organization. If the person is in it, people like to help people, right? So, I mean, if you present a good case, I've always found people more than helpful. They'll do a soft introduction via email, just, you know what, this person is interested. I've had a chat with them, and they'll be happy to help. I may have been very, very fortunate, but I think anyone in the industry is always willing. If someone has taken that initiative, I think they respect that, and they'll do what they can to, they may not be able to shortlist your resume, but they'll, you know, certainly be able to point you in the right direction and help with those small steps to make sure that the end result, they're aware of your qualifications and maybe interests, and I'd certainly look at leveraging that and reaching out indirectly, just as an informal question and answer even, if to help you get to that role.
I would say it's difficult to prove yourself on paper. That's something I always personally had a challenge with, but at least try and make the information relevant to the position that you're looking to apply for, rather than just kind of pumping them out and making sure that it kind of has your generic information on it. They're really looking for a personalized side of your service, and so when you do present yourself for an interview, I always rely on just maintaining professionalism, and once you kind of get to know the person that you're talking to, if they kind of seem to be a little bit jokey, like, then you can kind of let loose a little bit, but until then you are not doing that. And absolutely, there's lots of different interview styles, so I would look up different kind of techniques that the interviewer is actually using on you so that you can play the game right back. And that way you're prepared. So sometimes people are looking for stories, so they want you to explain a scenario, and then how did you resolve that scenario? So it's very much, you need to be prepared to answer these questions in full. It's not just going to be a very quick question. And again, your personality is always key. So if you're looking, even if you're kind of nervous, they're going to be able to see past that and see that you do have that true passion and pride, and that you would be fit for the position. So it's not easy, but the potential is definitely there.
Any other?
sorry.
You go ahead, Adam.
I was going to say, like others have said, having that personal connection, like, you send your resume in. We post jobs online, and some people just reply back with an email and send resumes in, and others, they bring it right to you, and they want to speak with you for a second and highlight the fact that you're going to Mount St. Vincent, that you're looking for a co-op, because that automatically right there, when I see someone's going to school for this, I know that there is a level of passion there for this industry. And if you're on a co-op as well too, you're going to want to make sure that you perform and you grow during your position there. That's pretty much a given, and that will help get your foot in the door and stand out against others that are applying for the position.
Any other comments on that question from the panel? Okay. Any other questions from the audience? Candace has the mic, ready to go. I know. Well, if there are no more questions, on behalf of myself, we do. Just ignore me. It's okay.
Hi. So, can you hear me? Yeah. So my question is, we have a 3-year program, co-op program. What would you recommend, to stay with one company and getting the experience, or to work with different companies to get to where we want to be?
I'll start on this one. So I always laugh at myself because I said that I was going to be doing 3 different positions, guarantee, at 3 different locations, and I stayed in the same company and did almost the same thing every time. So I can't really say. I think it's to the individual. For me, it was beneficial to stay within the same company because you really get to know the personnel. You were able to be comfortable with the property itself. You're very knowledgeable. But depending on what you're looking for, if it's more tour side or like food and beverage, I guess, then maybe working at other places is better for you. I don't know. Kind of to each their own, I would say. But for me, staying with the same company was beneficial. So.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, like you mentioned, it's all your personal kind of growth and what you're looking for. I was with Fairmont and Delta, used to be owned by the same company, and I spent 10 years with that company, and I felt like I was growing the whole entire time I was there. I guess when you get to the point where whatever direction you want to go, if you don't feel you can grow, it's great to stay with the same company, and there's a lot to be said for that and the experience you can get. But if you do hit a level of you feel like you're not growing anymore, or you don't have this opportunity you're looking for with what you want to do next, don't be afraid to change either. I could have grown further with Fairmont and Delta, but I decided I wanted to stay in Nova Scotia. So I actually left Delta and I worked at the Halifax Club for a little while before I bought this restaurant. And that was a hard change to make. Ever since I'd been out of school, I'd been with one company, and I took a risk and I got some great experience when I was at the Halifax Club too. But it's because I wanted to live here, and I didn't see more growth in what I was doing here with that company. But it all depends on your personal circumstance, for sure.
Yeah, I think for me, I almost immediately went out of the industry. So coming back, I think I did 3 different work terms, all with different organizations. So I think if you do know yourself going down a particular path, I think like the other folks have said, that's fantastic because you get to know the organization. But if you're unsure, in my experience, just having those 3 very, very different experiences was more beneficial, because it was that network that led me into a fantastic, almost 9 years with Coca-Cola, and I'm a firm believer in take advantage of every opportunity as they present itself, if it's right for you at the time. So I had a different experience, but still very, very worthwhile in my opinion.
Yeah. I've stayed with the same company, but I've done so many different jobs with them that it feels like I worked at all of the different restaurants, in catering, as a director of beverages. So I was able to kind of create new challenges for myself and grow as a professional. But that was because I had the opportunity to work for a larger company, and that was there for me to do. And so I think you just follow your own path, and wherever that takes you. As long as you're growing personally, that's the most important part, I think.
Okay. Well, I think that concludes our Careers in Tourism and Hospitality panel. So on behalf of myself, the students, and the Mounts Business and Tourism Department, we would like to thank you all for your participation today, and for this Yes, go ahead. And if everyone could just exit through here, you can see Miriam. She has a learning passport stamp. And Elaine, do you have one? And Elaine has one at the top, too, if anyone would like to see Elaine. Thanks very much.
Well, selfishly, it was a pleasure meeting